Well, hello everybody. Welcome to another episode of Fishing with Rod. If you're new here, my name is Rod and I make educational and entertaining videos that focuses on fishing and fishery issues right across British Columbia, Canada. And today we're going to be talking about crowding in rivers, particularly in rivers right across the Fraser Valley here near Vancouver and Chilliwack River, about 1.5 hour drive from Vancouver. Is a pretty popular fishing spot. A few days ago, I made a video about it, talking about all the regulations and etiquettes that you need to know if you're coming out here to fish for the first time. And I also published a short video that showcases how busy it can be at the river during the peak salmon season. And understandably, I got lots of comments, there were lots of complaints without providing a solution, but at the same time, there were also lots of really good feedbacks that I want to address. Actually, I wanted to address most of it, both the negative and positives. So in this video, what I want to do is I'm going to read some of the comments. I won't cover all of them because it's too many. I want to read some of the comments and just talk a little bit about them. So here we go. Okay. So correction, you can retain wild coho in certain rivers. That is totally true. Here in Region 2, the Lower Main and Fraser Valley, pretty much all of the river systems only allow you to retain hatchery coho salmon, which means these coho salmon were raised at the hatchery, and during the juvenile stage, the adipose fins were clipped. So when they return as adults, the adipose fin is absent, and there's a heel scar in place, and that's how you can identify a hatchery coho salmon, and those are the ones you can keep in Region 2. But in many other regions, for example, in Region 1, which is Vancouver Island, some of the river systems like the Somas, Stamp River, you can in fact keep wild coho salmon, which has its adipose fin. So thank you for that. Peter Herman Adventures. Peter Herman does a lot of videos and very good videos on underwater footages across the Vedder River and beyond. And you should go check them out. It's pretty interesting. And he also talks about fishing etiquettes and regulations as well. So, okay, so nice video, Rodney. Influencers like us, you should be agent of positive change, and it's good that you are educating. Thank you. I believe you forgot to mention that salmon must be caught in the mouth, and attempting to foul hook salmon is illegal. That was a really great point that I totally forgot to mention in the last video. You cannot intentionally snag salmon, so casting out and just ripping back and attempt to hook a salmon by accident. Someone else mentioned that I should talk about flossing as well. Flossing meaning that instead of just ripping your line back and trying to snag a salmon, it means that you're trying to drift your hook in the water, and hopefully that hook will just accidentally hook a part of the salmon, and hopefully it's near the mouth, and then the angler will keep it. Those are totally illegal, and the only legal way to catch salmon with a license, with the angler license, is by attempting to make these salmon to bite. And they do bite a lot, trust me. Coho salmon will follow a lure right to your feet. They'll take salmon eggs under a float. You can fly fish for them. If you strip little mud minnows, you can easily catch coho salmon as well. You can drift a jig. Chum salmon will bite those as well. Even though when the water is low and clear like this time of year, it's a little harder to get them to bite, but definitely be patient and persistent, and they will bite, trust me. Okay, another one is snagging and attempting to snag salmon is legal using a rubber-coated net. If you crimp a barb and barb hook through barbless, but the tip of the barb breaks off and potentially it's a partial barb, you can still be fined. That is true. So if you pinch your barb and let's say if they run the hook through a cloth and they're trying to pull it out and it doesn't pull out, and then you could potentially be fined. Regarding rubber coated nets, rubber nets tend to have a much bigger mesh size, like a bigger hose. my preference, and this is based on what we found out recently, is that my preference is I like those black catch and soft mesh catch and release net. They have very, very tiny holes on them. The problem with the bigger ones is that it tends to cut the fins. So with the weight of the fish pressing down with the mesh, the fins can be cut through the mesh if the holes are too big. If with a smaller hose, you kind of eliminate that problem. What's the problem with fin splits? It can potentially cause infection. They don't heal. In the river, it doesn't matter as much because it's so close to the spawning ground. They can most likely, it doesn't impact them that much. In the ocean though, netting a fish to release, it's a no-no now. We've found that out. The best way to release fish in the ocean is by using the gaff to dislodge the hook while the fish is in the water without any handling. Okay, so there's one comment I can't seem to find, but someone else pointed out the really important part, which is that if you're fishing for Chinook salmon in rivers, and if you catch an adult Chinook salmon, which is one that's defined by a certain length, you have to mark that Chinook salmon down on your fishing license right away before you start fishing again. Very important. If fishery officers are checking you and you have a Chinook salmon laying there and they see you haven't recorded down on your license, you will get fined for that. So make sure you mark that down. The reason it has to be marked down is that you only allow, there's an annual limit of Chinook salmon that you can keep. So that's how they keep track. My number one etiquette tip, there isn't always room for another person to slot in. If you get to a spot and it's packed, wait for someone else to leave or go somewhere else. That is true. So there isn't always room. If you get there late, you're gonna have to wait or go somewhere else. And always just ask. And people sometimes will be understanding and let you fish beside them. Other times they might say no, and it's probably not a good idea to squeeze yourself in there and create conflicts. Okay, this one's a good point. So one thing I'd like to add is try and fish using the same general techniques as the other people around you. You can pack the bank a lot tighter if everyone is doing the same thing. Trying to mix floats and spoons and jigs and fly fishermen in the same run is asking for cross lines. Don't expect to find the space for the back cast when you are the only guy fly fishing. And that's very true. So if you come to a run and there's a whole bunch of people float fishing, it's probably not the greatest idea to be casting a spoon in there or twitching a jig or fly fishing, because the two methods are so different. Floats are drifting down, you can easily cross lines, they're just asking for trouble. On the other hand, if you see someone fly fishing at the spot, if you go in and start casting spoons and jigs and float fishing, that can really disrupt the fly fisherman. Fly fishing takes up a lot more room, so it's always a good idea to give fly fishermen more room to fish. Okay, so let's take a look at some of the Facebook colorful comments. For this next part, I'm going to read several comments before addressing them. The Vedder has become a terrible place to fish. It is overrun with snaggers and flossers, and there is little to no fishing etiquette to be seen. Here's another one. Absolutely appalling what that area has become. As a Chilliwack resident since birth, I believe licenses should be limited to residents. Took many people with zero respect and illegally retaining snag fish and beyond the limit. I can't imagine how anyone can fish on the river with dozens of people lined up on the bank, only spaced 6 feet apart, and not get so many lines wrapped up and fist fight, not breaking out everywhere. Nope, no thanks. No enjoyment being in that environment for me. I have not fished the Vedder in the last 15 years because of the crowds when the bite is on. I can't imagine how worse it is now. Okay, so let's talk about this. What has happened in the last 20 years? So the population in Metro Vancouver has gone up by 1 million people. Just Chilliwack alone, I've been here for 10 years. The population has gone up by quite a bit. If you look at how many houses are being built, how many people moving out this way, it's not a surprise to see that many people fishing. In terms of someone saying that this fishery should be, restricted to people who live in Chilliwack, that is simply nonsense. The Chilliwack River hatchery is funded by your tax dollars. It's not funded by your fishing license. So it's for everybody. That hatchery production is for recreational fishing. It's for First Nation harvest. It's for commercial fisheries in the ocean as well. It's not just for recreational anglers in the Vedder River. So it's for everybody. Your fishing licenses in BC is extremely cheap. We're paying for less than $100 to be fishing in many rivers for salmon and steelhead year round. You can't get to fish to enjoy all these fisheries for that cheap anywhere else outside of Canada. It's just not going to happen. So I think we kind of take that for granted. We really enjoy that. You can't have your cake and eat it. It's you can't expect having cheap access and also potentially not having a busy fishery. It's simply not going to happen. If you want less people fishing here, that license fee, the access fee for the fishery has to go way up. I bet you that would reduce the amount of anglers pretty fast. I fished in Europe before, where you potentially have to pay anywhere from $30 to $100 per day to fish, and there's definitely hardly anyone out there fishing. But at the same time, it's pretty expensive, and the fishing is not that great either compared to what we have here. So my suggestion is that it does get busy. But at the same time, I think this doesn't happen everywhere. It does happen at the easy access spots, like by the bridge, Vedder Crossing Bridge, Keith Wilson Bridge, etc. And at the same time, people out there enjoying fishing. All of these people out here bought a license, hopefully, and they came out here and they enjoying fishing just like you would want to do. And they're not trying to do the wrong thing. Perhaps there are people flossing, snagging there, but at the same time, there are people fishing legally, just trying to catch a fish to bring home. If you subject yourself in that crowd, if you show up the river and choose to fish there, I don't think you can complain about it. Go for a walk and go somewhere else. And trust me, there are places where you can also find spots that are pretty quiet and where you can have pretty productive fishing as well. Because I found them over the years. So it really is. I'm not saying it isn't an issue, but at the same time, if you're gonna complain about it, let's do something about it. That's what these videos are all about. It's to educate anglers. So hopefully people do the right thing. And you know what? And like I say, anglers come in many different skill levels. It come in different ages. A lot of these anglers could be beginners. They're just starting out, and as they progress, they get more experience. They will explore other places as well. So consider that as a starting point. And also, if a place that's easier to walk, the older anglers might want to fish in this area as well. So what's wrong with that? They'd rather be fishing with other people around them so they can get help instead of fishing at a secluded spot. So if it's not for you, doesn't mean it's not for everyone else. And what's with people talking about fist fights and knife fights? Because in the last 25 years since I started fishing here, I've never seen a fist fight. I've never seen a fight, to be honest. It's my approach, and I think this is a good approach, is that if you're coming out here to fish, you gotta have a positive attitude. If you come out here and look for negatives, you're gonna find negatives. There's guarantee you will find negatives. If you come here and thinking everyone else is against you, that's just gonna happen. If you come out here and have the mindset that you're gonna be helping other people if they need help, and there are lots of people that need help. Beginners who are out there fishing. I've seen beginners fishing out there being ignored by more experienced anglers, and when they do something wrong and they get told off without really being educated, and I really think that is the wrong approach. If you see someone who is in need of help, who's out there and just completely oblivious and doesn't know what he or she is doing, give them a hand. I think they would appreciate it a lot, especially if they catch a fish once they start doing the right thing. Like, I can't find this comment, but someone else mentioned, what do you do when you see someone doing the wrong thing? For example, poaching, using a barbed hook, fishing without a license, keeping too many fish. You need to phone DFO. DFO has a ORR line, observe, record and report line. So you can phone them. They also have an email. I'll leave all that information on the bottom in the description. Always carry those numbers in your phone, and always phone in. That being said, when you phone in, it doesn't mean they can attend every single infraction. There are only a limited number of DFO officers in the Fraser Valley. They have to attend all kinds of violation in the sector, including First Nation fisheries, there's habitat destruction, there's angling infraction, there's also office work, and there's patrol, they have to attend court dates. So the chance of them coming out to you to catch a guy using a barbed hook is pretty small, but you should always report it, because every single report gets recorded, and based on that they can see which area is getting more infraction than other areas, and they'll down the road they will spend more time in that area, patrol that area, and hopefully they will catch whichever violators you've been reporting. Okay, so this is a good one. Social media has destroyed sport fishing on the Chilliwack Vedder River. I've never had to do combat fishing outland for sockeye on the Fraser River. Yeah, I mean, definitely. And there's definitely no question that social media or the internet in general has an impact on fishing, or just like anything else in the last 20 years. But again, there's so many factors that are involved when it comes to seeing the increase of fishing pressure here in the Fraser Valley. Okay, so social media is one. The other one is that the population has increased by 1 million in the last 20 years. Another one, this one that everyone seems to forget and not paying attention to, but those of us who work closely in fishery issues, is that the fishing opportunities here in the Fraser Valley or Lower Mainland have been reduced significantly in the last 20 years. Going back 20 years ago, the Fraser River used to be open for Chinook salmon fishing from the first week of April until, I guess, December, the end of December. Now, we don't have a Fraser River fishery anymore due to many reasons, conservation reasons, political reasons. We just don't have an opening. The only tiny window of opening that we might have at times, is the last 2 weeks of November, when it's open for hatchery coho fishing, and which is a bit of a joke, because the majority of the hatchery coho have already moved through the system by the time they open that fishery. It's closed throughout the fall in September, October, and part of November for several reasons. One is this conservation issue on the interior steelhead, which are endangered. That's why it's closed, to prevent any incidental bycatches. Two is that the chum salmon population has not been doing that great in the last several years as well. So there are a couple concerns that are keeping that particular fishery, a wonderful fishery that I've done before in the past. It's a great family fishery where you can go down to the Fraser River bank and catch coho salmon without going to spots like the Vedder River, which are not necessarily the safest place for kids and older anglers. So fishing opportunities like that have been removed. If you look at a lot of other tributaries, the seasons openings have all been reduced as well. DFO has taken away catch and release fisheries that used to exist, where there wouldn't be a salmon retention in these tiny little river systems, and you no longer can go there to catch and release salmon anymore. So for anglers who don't want to keep salmon, like on the Vedder River, they don't really have anywhere else to go anymore. Like you can't go to a river system which are strictly for catching and releasing salmon. So a huge percentage of fisheries have been taken away, leaving a few productive ones, and that's why we're seeing an influx of anglers at these river systems. So it's not just social media, it's for several other reasons as well. In terms of fish abundance on the Vedder River, it's actually pretty good. They doubled the Chinook salmon hatchery production in the last 5 years, going from 1 million smolts to 2 million smolt release. The hatchery coho salmon returns have also been pretty good in the last few years. Not so much due to the hatchery production, but more the ocean condition has been great for their survival. The hatchery production on the Vedder River has actually been reduced. Why? Because, as I mentioned earlier, fisheries like the Fraser River, fall coho salmon opportunities, and even in the ocean have all been taken away. So the rationale is now that catches are going to be lower, we need to reduce the production, which to me it's kind of ironic. You know, you close the fishery and then you use that as a reason to reduce production. That being said, like I mentioned, the return has been pretty good. Every year we're still seeing about 20,000 to 40,000 coho salmon arriving at the hatchery, and we actually don't need that many fish to recruit the next population, meaning that we don't need that many spawners to produce the next batch of hatchery coho. So the extra ones, the surplus ones, actually get sent to the fish plant, and we're talking about tens of thousands of fish that are not caught by anglers in the river, and they get sent to the fish plant after that. So there's no shortage of fish, but there is a shortage of opportunities, a shortage of places to fish, and the amount of time to fish as well. My suggestion to you is that don't look at other anglers as your enemy, as your competitors, because we're all in the same boat. Everyone has bought a fishing license. Everyone has just as much right to be fishing out there as you. Get involved. Start lobbying for fishing opportunities and trying to bring some of those opportunities back. If you want to see a reduction on fishing pressure in your fishery. There are also a few comments that, besides social media, and I've heard this before, it really doesn't bother me, I've heard this in the last 20 years, is that it's all your fault, Rod. Okay, I'll take some of the blame, but at the same time, you gotta realize this is what I'm doing here. We're making educational videos to teach people who want to get out there to fish. Without the videos, you're going to have uneducated anglers because fisheries in Oceans Canada don't produce these content to help anglers. So we're trying to cut down that learning curve. Not promoting crowding. I mean, it's not up to me to do that. But if crowding is going to happen, we're going to make sure the anglers who are going out there are educated and trying to do the right thing. I can't be responsible for what everyone is doing, but what I can do is I can try to cut down the amount of people doing the wrong thing. And you can keep blaming me. Really doesn't matter. I'm still going to be doing this. I do work with several agencies, including DFO, Tourism Chilliwack, and many other DMO, destination marketing agency organizations in BC, trying to promote responsible usage of our resources. So skin's pretty thick. So keep the comments coming. Well, that is about it. There were so many comments, and I think those were kind of the key ones I wanted to focus on. And the fishing is just starting to pick up. So 2 days ago, I finally hooked a couple of salmon. Lost them all, but I finally found some in the last 10 days. So we're gonna have some fun in the next two and a half months. Hopefully everyone has a safe season, safe, productive season. And if you have any other questions, make sure you leave it on the comment. I'll try to do my best to address them, and make sure you subscribe to the channel, and there'll be many more videos to come this fall regarding salmon fishing. And until next time, good luck fishing.